Tim Rickson from British Boxing News. Thank you for joining me for another predictions video. This one's for tomorrow night's fight at the Copper Box Arena in London, which is featuring Joyce versus Zhilei Zhang, who's both fighters are Olympic silver medalists. So both fighters have got an amateur pedigree behind them. They're coming into this fight. Joyce, who's at a bit of a sort of, not a standstill, but, well, you could say a standstill, because he's in line to challenge Alexander Usyk for the WBO title, which is number one in their heavyweight rankings. Got the WBO global belt, WBO global, and then he obviously went on to get the WBO interim title. So he's a world champion in weighting, and weighting is the operative word. He's got Filip Hrgović ahead of him, someone else as well, I think ahead of him, obviously WBA, Daniel Dubois is ahead of him. So he's got a bit of a queue in order for his world title shot, which is a shame really, because he deserves it thoroughly. So while he's waiting, he's continuing to test himself up against big guys, big names. Zhilei Zhang from China, you know, he's got a decent record. His career has been rising and rising and rising. Then I think of late he's kind of sort of gone downhill slightly. And I think there's two sort of fights that made that happen. Obviously, the first fight was against Jerry Forrest, where he started brightly. I think there was 3 knockdowns, rounds 1, 2, and 3. It was clearly his fight to win. Then sort of rounds 4, 5, he just very, very visibly, fatigued, and everyone obviously questioned his stamina and his sort of will. And I know that straight after that fight, which he just about hung on to the final bell. I mean, that fight ended with Zhang turning his back away from Forrest. And I think if there was 5 seconds left in that fight, the ref would have seen that as, he conceded the fight. You know, he would have seen that if a fighter turns his back, the ref would jump in and stop that straight away. So he was literally 5 seconds away from getting stopped in that 10-round fight with Jerry Forrest. So that sort of raised question marks over his ability to box at that top level. But then after that fight, he was rushed to hospital with dehydration. He said that fight in the bubble, so where they was all sort of being kept apart in hotel rooms due to COVID restrictions, that meant that he didn't have the normal fight week preparation, which is understandable. And it shows you how much it can affect your performance, not having that. Sam Egerton, when he went to fight Dennis Hogan in Australia, it's the first time he'd ever, I think, well, not the first time he'd flown away, but obviously went all the way to Australia to defend his world title. And he said he'd never experienced a fight week or a build up to fight week like it. And in the ring, he was very subdued and he wasn't his usual self. And I think for Zhang in that fight against Jerry Forrest, the American, it was the same thing there. You know, halfway through the fight, he was a different fighter. You could tell that he was drained, and he was whipped to hospital straight away after the fight with dehydration and lots of other problems because of his lack of food and water intake in that kind of bubble fight week. So that was obviously a draw that went down as a blemish on his record. I think if I can remember rightly, I think 2 of the judges had it a draw and 1 had it a point ahead to Forrest. So he was very lucky to sort of scrape through without a loss on that record. And then when he did get a loss in his last fight to Filip Hrgović, the unbeaten Croatian, who's now the IBF number 1, that's a fight that people all had Zhang winning. So, he's had a draw and a loss on his record, and so they don't really, what's on paper, in reality, it's a bit sort of, harsh and a bit sort of unforgiving that he's got those blemishes on his record. So, if things had maybe sort of luck of the draw, he could be coming into this fight, completely unbeaten without a draw and a loss on his record. But it is what it is. And he's coming up against Joyce. Joyce, as you all know, he's an engine, he's a machine. That's why he's called the Juggernaut, because he does not stop coming forward. Nothing deters him. The biggest shots just bounce off his granite chin. Nothing stops him from coming forward at all. And he is, exactly what his alias suggests. He is a juggernaut. He can't be stopped. So in this fight, Two Olympic silver medalists, both with decent professional career records. Obviously, one's unbeaten, one isn't. But then, you know, like I said, that is a little unfair, perhaps. By the way, just backtracking, that Herkovic versus Zhang fight, I wouldn't call it a robbery. I'd say it was close. And depending on how you saw it, it could have gone either way. And I think most people had Zhang winning. But, you know, on reflection, you know, a draw, I couldn't go either way. It depends on how you saw it on the night live. So that one, it's not a complete robbery, but obviously a lot of people still had Zhang winning over Herkovic. So, you know, he was unlucky that night. So back to the fight, Joyce and Zhang. I think Joyce, with his non-stop punching, I think I saw a stat earlier this week that said he throws the highest amount of shots sort of in active boxers, and it's equivalent to what Kid Galahad throws, who's obviously a lot lighter and obviously should be a lot more energetic. So the volume of punches that Joyce throws, and I also saw another stat that his accuracy is one of the top in the whole heavyweights division. His accuracy for punches landed. So, you know, that volume of punches, the accuracy of those punches is quite unrivaled in the heavyweight ranks. You know, there's no one like Joe Joyce out there really. And his ability to take a punch, I mean, I wouldn't want to be a boxer that has a good ability to take a punch, because, you know, you're going to be eating shots all your career. And he does. He's a stand-up tall fighter, and he eats shots. You know, he goes in and he has to take a punch to land a punch. I'm sure that punch resistance has to run out at some point. Maybe against a bigger puncher, you've got your Wilders, your Furies. Maybe a bigger puncher like that might actually stop him one day. But someone like Zhang, who is a big puncher, I can't see him stopping him. I know Zhang said that Joseph Parker in his fight with Joyce was running away on the back foot the whole time. And when he did land a punch, it was off the back foot. So there wasn't really a lot of 100% full power behind it. Now, I know he landed a right hand, and I'm sure he was stuck fast on his feet, you know, feet planted, and Joseph Parker landed this peach of a right hand. Joyce blinked and then continued marching forward. So I think he has got an argument there, but also I think that Parker did hit him with some of his best shots and didn't put a dent in Joyce at all. So I think this fight, Zhang's a good sort of combination puncher, good counter puncher. So I think early on with Joyce, stand up tall, there to be hit, a bit robotic. I think Zhang could have a lot of early success and bounce a few shots off of Joyce's his face, you know, his granite chin. But obviously his chin's going to be able to afford to take them and to keep going forward. We hope, you know, we hope that maybe, I think at some point there's going to be a fighter that Joyce comes up against who will break that invincibility and knock him out or knock him down at some point. It's going to happen. But for now, while his punch resistance is the highest it is, with no chinks in the armour, I think that, yeah, the Asian's going to hit him with a few shots early on and have a bit of success, but it's all going to be just sort of phases of success. You know, it'd just be a little volume of a combination here midway through the first round, then maybe one to end the first round with. I don't think he's going to be dominating at any point. Joyce said that he's not going to be reckless because he hasn't fought a southpaw for a long time, and he's also respectful of Zhilei's power. So you could sort of think, oh, well, maybe he's going to go in a little methodical and perhaps take his time. But we've seen Joyce go in every fight the same. He goes in, he throws unending punches, relentless pressure, never letting up for a single second, big engine, breaks the fighters down. And, you know, I don't see whatever he says before the fight, I don't see how we're going to get anything different. So for me, Joyce goes in, takes a few shots early on, breaks Zhilei Zhang down, and around about round 6 onwards, I think the Chinese man's going to fade, and he has faded in previous fights, and I think he'll fade again, especially under that high tempo and that pressure that Joyce is going to bring. So I think from round 6 onwards, we're going to see a stoppage. He's a tough guy because that war that he had with Forrest, when he was completely drained, had to be rushed to the hospital afterwards, He survived that war for 5-6 torrid rounds, all the way up to round 10 to hear the final bell. Just about heard the bell, but he proved that he's got heart of a warrior. He's got punch resistance, he's got durability, he's got a chin. So he's going to take a good 5, 6, 7 rounds to break down. But when he's faded and he's sort of drained, I do think Joyce is going to land one big telling blow. Or I could even see Zhang being stopped on his feet, too brave for his own good, maybe the corner having to save him. But I do think that it's going to be a Joyce stoppage from round 6 onwards. Thanks for listening, take care.